How's it guys, and welcome back to another HanSelah video. I'm Han. I talk about all things to do with graphic design and running my own freelance graphic design business. And in today's video we are talking all about how to create hierarchy in your graphic design work. I have my coffee ready for this using my hand-painted mug. I actually painted this for my bachelorette party when I was in South Africa last year. So this is a very special mug, and that is what the back looks like. I love having funky mugs, and I especially love that I painted this myself, so very happy with it. But anyway, back to the video. When it comes to graphic design, laying out your designs is really important. And one of the ways in which we like to lay out our designs is making use of hierarchy. So why is hierarchy important? Well, it basically helps the viewer digest the design that they're looking at. There's usually something that grabs their attention with a focal point, whether it be a heading, whether it be an image, something that they can latch onto, and then move their eyes across the design comfortably and in a timely manner so they don't feel overwhelmed. For example, if you had to just look at this out of the blue, you wouldn't quite know how to digest this information. Whereas if you look at something like this, it's very easy to understand what it is and what you need to do with the information. You can see the call to action and what they're trying to prompt the viewer to do. I personally don't like to review or critique any graphic design work that hasn't been asked to be critiqued. So if I had to just go onto Pinterest or Behance and then start critiquing templates and designs, I don't feel too great about that because no one asked me to do that. So I'm going to be on Kittl today, and the reason I chose Kittl is because it is a graphic design platform aimed at graphic designers, which means the templates that are on Kittl are good examples of graphic design. It's going to be easy for me to find good examples of hierarchy being used correctly in graphic design, and on top of that, these templates are available to be used on Kittl. Kittl is the sponsors of today's video. They're an all-in-one graphic design platform aimed at advanced graphic designers. You can use my discount code HanSelahYT to get 25% off all your pro and expert paid Kittl plans for new users. So let's dive in. So starting off strong, I really like this newsletter header. For starters, I really like this pixel font. I think it's really cool and spunky, and I love looking at graphic display fonts like this. On top of that, I also like the layout. So it's a center-aligned layout going from top to bottom. And as you can see here, the first thing that grabs our attention is up to 70% off site-wide. So they have created a focal point with this beautiful font, which if we click on it, it is Draft Sans PXL, if anyone is wondering, and it's the condensed version. But they have created the first sense of hierarchy by having this big, bold, beautiful heading. They have also limited their design to black, yellow, and white. So there's not a lot of different colors in this, which is good because by just adding yellow around this or adding yellow over here, it also draws attention and creates a sense of hierarchy. So if I had to digest this, we obviously come here first, and then I look straight into Shop Now Big Save, Black Friday sale, and then lastly I look at this information, the image, and the icons. This, I would say, is a great starting point if you are looking for a simple way to add hierarchy into your design work. The second design that we're looking at today is a missing person advert. So first thing you do, open your eyes, boom, I see missing person, Michael Brown, $200 reward. That is the important information that we need to know. So first thing, it's a missing person. We have his name, we have the reward, and obviously we have the picture. So I'm reading this from top to bottom, left to right, which is how we generally digest information. All of this additional information over here is, yes, it's important, but in terms of hierarchy, it's not the first thing that I want to see. For example, if we had to spotlight his age, his height, and his hair color first before his name or telling them that there's a missing person, people are probably going to be very confused. So the way that they have laid out this information is very clear, concise, and to the point. The next example is this over here, and I think this was super cute. I love the little illustration. But the leg is pointing directly to the name, which creates a leading line into the name Gail Weber, which is obviously nice and big. So they've created a sense of hierarchy by making it larger. The words head of coffee have been capitalized, which also adds a sense of hierarchy. And then all of this additional information at the bottom is, again, the least important information. So it's smaller, and it's okay if it doesn't get seen straight away. This example is also very similar to the previous one, where we have an illustration that's leading up directly into the name, so creating the sense of leading lines. We're looking at the face, to the burger, to the name. I would even replace this and take this out and put that burger here as a logo. I think that would be quite cool to incorporate this into the illustration, but that's just my idea. That's what I would personally do. I'm not a big fan of this font, But as you can see, it's in capital letters, it's bold, it's bigger than all of this information down here. So you can see there's a very distinct way that they've created hierarchy in this design. Now, the next example, I wanted to show this because I wouldn't necessarily say this is a very pretty design. As you can see, there's a lot of information on it, but they've managed to lay it out in such a way that it is digestible. So they say, discover your dream home with T Property House. So it's obviously a place where you can look for houses, and they've got their logo up here. So that's the first thing that you look at. Now, another way of creating hierarchy is, yes, to make things bigger, yes, to make things another color, but also to group elements. So as you can see, these have been grouped as one color. They're in close proximity with each other, so we read them as one group. We read this as another group because it's within a colored block, so save on 15% of selected properties. And we read this one as another third group, unlike your dream home today. All the other additional information is not necessarily it is important information, but in terms of hierarchy, it's not the thing that we want people to see first. So the way that they have grouped the information, created hierarchy with size, and created hierarchy with color is really good. But yeah, all in all, although this artwork has a lot of information, a lot of copy, which is text, on it, they've still managed to lay it out in such a way that it's not overpowering and it's still structured. I can still read where they want me to read first, from most important to least important information. And the same with this one over here. This one is for a gym. Grand opening, they have the logo and then 50% off. That is the most important information that they need to know. From there, it then talks about the kind of T's and C's and then registering. The logo is obviously showing which gym it is. So again, the way this has been laid out. The other thing is they've got this image of this male here, and he is looking down directly at the grand opening. So that creates a leading line as well, like leading into the text, which is really good. And then on top of this as well, they've blocked off 50% off within a colorful block, and same as register now, that's also been differentiated by putting it on that colorful block. So that's another way of doing it. If we look at this one, I think this one is really cute and spunky, and it says extra scoop on us, only $7. So the first thing that you see here is boom, you see the ice cream, you see the visual, so you know it's an ice cream shop. You know that you get an extra scoop on them and $7. And then the rest of the information, it's not that important. So I don't like to say something is not important, because everything in graphic design has a purpose and is important and is there for a specific reason. But let's just say all of this is less important information. It doesn't need to have as much emphasis on it as, for example, the main heading or the price. For Jolly Beans Cafe, we have warm up with a holiday brew, and I really like this visual that they have in the center. I feel like it's cozy, it's warm, it's hand drawn, it's got this like personal touch to it, so I think this graphic is really nice. And along with this font as well, this font is very friendly, it's very inviting, it's very bubbly, so I think this pairs really beautifully together. They've limited their color palette to 2 colors as well, which helps with hierarchy. And then on top of that, all of this additional information here, as you can see, they have grouped this information together, and then the location has been grouped together as well. So that's another way of creating hierarchy, is grouping bits of information, having that proximity and spacing stuff out from each other, and having them in separate like panels where people can look. Moving on to sushi, I really like this font. I think it really matches this sushi visual and graphic. I love the shape that is being created in the letter H over here. Kind of reminds me of a chopstick as well, so I quite like that. Obviously, sushi grabs our attention, and so does the visual. So that is like the first thing they want you to see. They want you to see the $7. And then additionally, you can see here they've used hierarchy to group the various assets. So they've used red, so now on sale. And then for the least important information, it's in black and it's slightly smaller. Now this one, I wouldn't necessarily say this is very fun design to look at. Personally, I don't quite like the colors that they've used. But in terms of hierarchy, in terms of reading this visually and navigating the information, again, it's going from left to right, top to bottom. And the first thing that grabs our attention is the image which is leading directly down into the information, and also this heading over here on the left. So you read this and then it goes down into the information, kind of like an arrow, like pulling your eyes down. The other thing I don't necessarily like about this, if you look, they've got so many different font sizes, which I am not a fan of. So obviously this is a font size, this is a font size, this is a different size, that's a different size, this is a different size, then this one's capitals, this one's not. So for me personally, this is a bit too much going on. I feel like they need to just align their font sizes a little bit better. But in terms of visual hierarchy and leading lines, I like how the image is laid out and drawing you down into the information. So another artwork would be this poster, The Claws and the Rebellion. I really like this vibe. I love the graphic. I love the line work. I love the fonts. They've limited their color palette, as you can see, which makes it a lot more digestible. They have a beautiful illustrative type of font and the top here, which grabs your attention. They have a wonderful graphic. It's got a very hand-drawn, illustrative, retro feel to it. It kind of got like a vintage vibe, and as you can see, it pays homage to the font. Like, these just match really well together, and having the white or the light cream color that's also in the font kind of groups them together, but I'm reading it from top to bottom. And then finally at the bottom we have all of the dates and information that's less important, because we don't need to see that information all there. If people want to know more, they will read down to the bottom and then they find out more information. So I'm really liking the hierarchy that has been created here. It's not overwhelming, it's very easy to read. Another way to show visual hierarchy or just laying out information is looking at a simple letterhead. So we have the logo, we have the important information like the date and who it's addressed to, we have the contact details, the body of the letter, regards, we have something in bold over here to show their name, that's important, and then in the very bottom here we have in a different color in the brand colors the social media links. That's a very cut and dry way of creating hierarchy. I wouldn't necessarily say this is very pretty, but it gets the job done and it doesn't overwhelm the viewer. Another example is this certificate design. Personally, I'm not necessarily a fan of this design. Like, it's okay, but personally I would make some changes to it. But in terms of hierarchy, in terms of laying out the information, this is a very good example. So the first thing our eyes are drawn upon is what the certificate is for. So it's Queen of the Social Butterfly Realm. Then we have Jane Johnson, the name. So we know that those two are super important. They're big, they're bright, they're bold, they're right there in our face. Boom. And then we have this information down here, which has obviously been separated. It's been grouped together and aligned as a little block. And then obviously we have the date and the signature. And that goes from left to right. There's symmetry, so this is matching this. It's nice, vertically symmetrical, horizontally symmetrical, so it works. So the final design that we're going to critique today is this infographic, and as you can see here, there's quite a lot of information on it, but obviously the first thing we see is this main heading, and then we see each of these percentages. So I would say, I mean, if this were me, I would probably put a little bit more on the infographic side of things, but in terms of hierarchy, I love that this is very symmetrical and balanced, and creating balance is also another way of creating good hierarchy, because everything is aligned, it's easy to read, it's easy to digest, nothing is trying to fight for attention. Like, I look at this and it's all very neutral, and I know that I can work my way down into all the important bits of information, and then at the bottom we have a call to action or a place where they can go to learn more information. So I quite like this layout. Even though there is a lot of information, it's beautifully laid out and designed, and it doesn't overwhelm the viewer. So just to sum everything up in terms of hierarchy, you can create hierarchy in graphic design in multiple different ways. The most common ways of creating hierarchy is obviously through size and scale. So the bigger something is, the more likely people will look at it first. Through contrast, whether that be with a color, a font, a shape, having some sort of juxtaposition, or having something in bright red or bright yellow when everything else is white or black, so creating that sort of contrast pop. The third way is through alignment and spacing, so aligning everything top to bottom, left to right, or spacing it out perfectly, or grouping, that's another way, so that'll be the fourth way. Separating the text into little groups or into blocks, and then putting the information into a little group on that block. And then obviously we have typography as well, so having your heading, your subheading, is it bolded, is it italicized, is it in capital letters, is it in sentence case? If it's in capital letters, going to have more attention on it. If it's smaller, if it's regular, if it's italicized, if it's light. Did you put it in a little button shape? Did you put it in a block? So having all of these things just guides the viewer, helps them read through your design, doesn't overwhelm them. So it provides readability, clarity, people can digest the information quickly, easily, especially when it comes to something important such as a missing persons poster. No one really needs to know their shoe size, but they do need to know their name and what they look like and that they're missing. Also, when you create hierarchy, it just makes it look more professional, it makes it look more put together, and it's just more interesting to look at. Without hierarchy, the messaging is not going to be clear, the call to action is not going to be clear, and the information is not going to be clear. And our whole role as graphic designers is to provide clear information and messaging to a viewer in order for them to act a certain way or do a certain thing or buy a certain product, whatever the case may be. It's our job to get people to read information and act on it. Especially as graphic designers, sometimes we have multiple page documents, we have magazines, we have newspapers, we have presentations, we have PowerPoints, we have lots of information to cram into one design. Don't be afraid of negative space, don't be afraid of laying out your information and not overpowering your design. Just because there is space on a page doesn't mean it needs to be filled. Just because you have 6 brand colors doesn't mean they all need to be on the page. So for example, I know a lot of amateur designers, if there are 6 brand colors, they want to put all 6. And I'm like, hold the front door. Let's use 2, maximum 3, and even better, use 2 and add a tint and a shade of one color. And then you have diversified your color palette, but you're still keeping it within, a very limited number of colors. And that in itself is a great way of creating hierarchy in design. I think I'm going to do a few more of these kind of quick little videos to show you how to break down visual graphics and graphic design work and how to better your graphic design skills in 2025. So this is today's mini lesson on simple graphic design essential tips and tricks. If you want to learn more, feel free to subscribe to my channel and like this video. Don't forget, if you want to try Kittl for free, you can sign up using the link below in the description of this video. And if you want to try all that Kittl has to offer, you can use my code HanSelah to get 25% off all pro and expert paid Kittl plans for new users. Have a lovely day wherever you are in the world. Keep creating, keep designing, keep learning, and I'll see you soon. Don't forget to check out this video if you want to see more educational graphic design videos like this. Anyway guys, have a lovely day and I'll see you soon. Bye!